Hi all, my name is Adam. This is the SAT official practice test number 10. It is the test from October 2018. This is a continuation of the video I did for section 3. This is section 4, which is the calculator section. Let's jump in. Problem 1, they're asking a helicopter initially hovering 40 feet above the ground begins to gain altitude at a rate of 21 feet per second. Which of the following functions represents the helicopter's altitude above the ground, y in feet, t seconds after beginning to gain altitude. So what they're looking for is a line describing how high the helicopter is. All the equations take the same form. The key thing to look for with a line is what do they give you for initially. So if you're looking for y is equal to mx plus b, that initial condition is that b. So you know that 40 feet is b here. And the only thing they're doing to try to trick you here is that in these answers, they're putting b, they have this written as b plus mx. It's just a tricky thing they try to do. But you know that 40 is b, so you can go ahead and D has 40 multiplied by t, that's incorrect. And then you can think about gaining altitude. So it's gaining altitude at a rate of 21 feet per second. It's ascending, not descending, which means that that 21 will be positive, and it will be 21 feet per second, where it's t seconds. So it'll be 21 times t. It's not minus 21, because that would be descending. It's not just plus 21, because this would be a constant. You need to have it multiplied by t, which leaves B as the correct answer. Question 2, they're asking a text messaging plan charges a flat fee of $5 a month for up to 100 text messages, plus 25 cents for each additional text message sent that month. Which of the following graphs represents the cost y? So y is this is the cost axis of sending x text messages per month. So this will be text messages per month on the x. So it looks like you have to go through each graph individually and decide which one is correct. So they start with the $5 flat fee, $5. So you know that'll be a flat line on the plot. So you can look at which one has that flat line at $5. And you can see that A, it does. Right here is the flat line at $5. B, it does flat line at $5 up to 100 text messages. Whereas C and D do not have that flat line. They're incorrect. Basically, what this would be describing is if you were charged 25 cents per text right out of the gate. If it was $5 and then 25 cents per text immediately, that's incorrect. And then D is if you were getting paid to text, I guess, because it's the price is going down as you get to 100 text messages. It's free after 100 text messages. That's incorrect too. So now I have to decide between A and B, where you can see in A, you get $5 up to 100 text messages, and then your costs start to increase as you send more text messages, whereas B, it's $5 up to 100 text messages, then your costs start to decrease, which doesn't make any sense. You're not going to get paid to send text messages. So the correct answer here is A, where you have $5 flat and then an increasing cost after that. Problem 3. Jake buys a bag of popcorn at a movie theater. He eats half of the popcorn during the first 15 minutes of previews. After eating half the popcorn, he stops eating for 30 minutes. Then he gradually eats the popcorn until he accidentally spills all the remaining popcorn. Which of the following graphs could represent the situation? That's to say, I love how they describe that, the situation. Anyway, let's start looking at the graphs and start looking for things that are anomalous right off the bat. So one thing about this whole story is that he never goes back for more popcorn. He never generates popcorn. So any graph that has a positive slope on it, meaning the amount in the bag is going up, is incorrect. So you can look at C has this where it's going up in time. That is not correct. That never happens in that story. D has it going up in time as well. That never happens. You can cross that one right out. Okay, so next let's look at each sentence and say, is this represented on these graphs? You can say, during the first 15 minutes of previews, he's eating half. It looks like both A and B describe that, where it's going down by half. And then he stops eating for the next 30 minutes. You can see that A has him stopping for, it's about 30 minutes described there. And then he gradually eats the rest of the popcorn until he accidentally spills. So this has A has a gradual eating the popcorn, B has a gradual eating the popcorn. And okay, the big difference is at the end where he spills the remainder. A would have him, I don't know, I guess going back to the concession stand where it goes up. Again, there's no going back up. So A is incorrect. B, he spills, so he goes to 0 popcorn at the end. B is the correct answer. Question 4, if 20 minus x is equal to 15, what is the value of 3x? So basically asking you solve for x, multiply by 3. You can go ahead, subtract 20 from both sides, the equation above, you'll have negative x is equal to negative 5, multiply both sides by negative 1, you'll have x is equal to 5. And this is the only part that's tricky. Maybe you're in a rush to get through these easy ones, you just bubble in A. Remember, you have to come back, multiply by 3. So 3x is equal to 3 times 5. 5 is equal to 15. So C is the correct answer. And just a silly aside here, anytime that they have this, like what's the value of 3x when you have to solve for x, they're always going to give x as an answer as well. So the only one where that works here is C is equal to 15. The other answer that they give is A. So even before I solved anything, it was kind of like, I bet this is going to be C. Lo and behold, it turns out that's true. So for this problem, it didn't matter. Solving for x was pretty easy. But if you ever find yourself in a bind and you can do that sort of logic on what would they make the answer, look for that sort of thing. Problem 5, for the function f described above, what is the value of f of negative 1? Simply means plug negative 1 in for x. You'll have negative 1 plus 3 divided by 2. That will be 2 divided by 2 is equal to 1. Looks like your answer is C. Problem 6, which of the following is equivalent to 2x times x squared minus 3x? This might be leading you to some kind of factor thing, but the first thing to do is just multiply this through, see if that gets you the answer you need. So you will have 2x to the third. When you multiply, consider this 1, and then you just add the exponents, and then minus 2 times 3 will be 6x squared. Check if that's an answer. It is, as D. D is the correct answer. Problem 7, a retail company has 50 large stores located in different areas throughout a state. A researcher for the company believes the employee job satisfaction varies greatly store to store. Which of the following sampling methods is most appropriate to estimate the proportion of all employees to the company who are satisfied with their job? Okay, so the most important sentence there is that the researcher believes that employee job satisfaction varies greatly from store to store. So what they're going to be looking for is which of the sampling methods gives you the most from different stores. So keep that in mind when you're reading through the answer responses. So in A, they're saying select one of the 50 stores at random and surveying each employee at that store. That's not going to get you there because you want to represent multiple stores, not just the one. B, selecting 10 employees from each store at random and then surveying each employee selected. That will give you the same sample from each store. The only thing that would be better than that is doing more employees from that store. So let's read the rest of them. Surveying the 25 highest paid employees and the 25 lowest paid employees. That's not a very good, that might give you multiple stores, but you never know. Maybe there's a corporate headquarters or something. That's not going to be better than B. Creating a website on which employees can express their opinions and then using the first 50. No, that doesn't guarantee it's going to come from any particular store. Maybe the first store that gets the memo or something will do most of the responses. So your best answer here is B, selecting 10 employees from each store to give you the variety of stores. Problem 8. The two graphs above show the total amounts of money that Ian and Jeremy have deposited into their savings account for the first 7 weeks after opening their account. After they made their initial deposits, how much more did Ian deposit each week than Jeremy? Okay, so that each week is really the key to this problem because they're asking not about the initial conditions, the final conditions, they're asking about the slope. They're asking for the difference each week. So what is the slope of the Ian line? Slope of Ian is equal to $100 per week, right? So week 1 he's depositing $100, week 2 he's depositing another $100. Is 100. Slope of the Jeremy line. Each week, it looks like it takes him 2 weeks to deposit $100, right? There's $100, there's $100, so it's $50 per week. So that means that Ian is depositing, so subtract those two, you get 50. So it looks like Ian is adding $50 more per week than Jeremy. Problem 9, the function h is defined above. What is h of 5 minus h of 3. Okay, so they're just asking you to plug in 5, plug in 3, and subtract your two results. So what you'll have is your final result is going to equal h of 5, which will be 2 to the power of 5, minus h of 3, which is 2 to the power of 3. And these are, the exponents of 2 are something that you probably have committed to memory. I'll write them out if you don't. It's a good thing to go back and memorize before the SAT, because they love to ask things like this. So if you think about it, 2 to the power 1, 2 to the power 2, 2 to the power 3, 2 to the power 4. Once you see them written out, you might think, oh yeah, I know all those. So 2 to the power 1 is just 2. 2 to the power 2 is 4. 2 to the power 3 is 8. 16. 32, and you probably see those and think, oh, I saw those in comp sci or whatever. But they're things that you should have committed to memory going into the SAT. So go ahead and pick them out. 2 to the power of 5 is 32. 32 minus 2 to the power of 3 is 8. So 32 minus 8 will give you 24. So your answer is C, 24. And if you didn't have these memorized, I know I've made a big deal about memorizing it. Don't worry about it. You can always just do 2 times 2 times 2 and do that 2 more times to get 2 to the power of 5. No big deal. Just costs you a little bit more time. Problem 10, a researcher surveyed a random sample of students from a large university about how often they see movies. Using the sample data, the researcher estimated that 23% of the students in the population saw a movie at least once per month. The margin of error for this estimation is 4%. Which of the following is the most appropriate conclusion given about all the students in the university based on the given estimate and the margin of error? So basically all they're saying is that this study concluded that 23% plus or minus 4% of students saw a movie in the last month. So basically just there's no choice except to read every answer and see which one says that, essentially. So A, it is unlikely that less than 23% of the students see a movie at least once per month. No, it's not saying that, because it could certainly be less than 23 because the margin of error was plus or minus 4, so it's entirely plausible that it was 22% saw a movie last month or something like that. Okay, B, at least 23%, but no more than 25%. Students saw a movie at least once per month. It's not saying that either. Again, we're plus or minus 4, so that could be 20 up to 27% had saw a movie in the last month. So B is not correct. The researcher is between 19 and 27% sure that the students see at least one movie per month. Nope, that's not what they're saying. They're not saying that's the researcher's confidence. They're saying that's the number of students. So C is incorrect. So hopefully D is correct. Or I'll have to backtrack on something I said. It is plausible that the percentage of students who see a movie at least once per month is between 19 and 27%. Yes, that is correct. You have your 23% plus or minus 4. It is plausible that that's students seeing a movie. Yep, D is your correct answer. Problem 11, the table above shows two lists of numbers, which the following is a true statement comparing list A to list B. And the only way to know what they're talking about is to start reading the answers. First, they're asking about the means. Are they the same or different? And they're asking about the standard deviations. Are they the same or different? So we'll start with the mean. It'll be, you can knock out two answers one way or the other. So you have 1 through 6 in order. So you know that the mean will be in list A, will be right in the middle. And it's pretty easy. If you need to calculate it, you can. But you can see that there's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The mean will be 3.5. And it looks like list 2 is the same way. So instead of going all the way down to 1 in list B, they just have 2 and 2 3s, and then they have 2 4s and a 5. So you can probably just eye that up and again see that that's 3.5. If you can't just eye that up and see that, the way to calculate mean, I'll just do it quickly, is you add them all up. So you do 2 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 plus 4 plus 5, and then divide that by the number of numbers that you have there. So you have 6, that'll be divided by 6, and you will end up with 3.5 when you go through and do that. Or you can just see that they're 3.5. So the means are the same, so you can eliminate C, you can eliminate D because they're saying the means are different. Okay, so the next part of the question is, is the standard deviation the same or different? And there is an equation for standard deviation that you can go through and calculate, or you can just see that what's the definition of standard deviation? What are they really asking for when they talk about standard deviation? And it's the chance that a number that you pick is close to or far from the mean. And you can see in list B, you have a chance to pick 6, which is further from the mean than picking 5, for instance. And you have a chance to pick 1, which is further from the mean than picking 2. That's the max the min you could pick in list B. So from that, you can tell that the standard deviations have to be different. Basically, list B is going to have a smaller standard deviation than list A because it's a tighter packing of the numbers. So to conclude, the means are the same, 3.5. The standard deviations are different. So your correct choice is A. Problem 12. A book was on sale for 40% off its original price. If the sale price of the book was $18, what was the original price of the book? So start writing this out as an equation. This final price that paid was $18. And it was 40% off its sale price. So if you call the original sale price, or the original price X, you know that it was 40% off, so it would be 0.6. You can think of it as that's the original price 1 minus 0.4 would be the 40% off. So you'll have 18 is equal to original price times 0.6. You're paying 60% of the original price. To solve, divide both sides by that 0.6. You'll have X is equal to 18 divided by 0.6. And this is the calculator section. You can just throw that into your calculator and you'll end up with X is equal to $30. And that is answer C is correct. Problem 13, they start with this information that'll be for questions 13 and 14. Every time they do this, they give you a huge amount of information. Skim it. Don't try to read it in depth or you'll end up running out of time. But you have bar graphs with the number of insects. It looks like 3 different colonies. And the weeks after they were treated with this pesticide, if you read the text, 3 colonies, which represent each of the bars, were treated with different pesticide for an 8-week period to test the effectiveness of 3 pesticides, colonies A, B, and C. Each of the bars were treated with pesticides A, B, and C. So each colony was treated with the letter represents the colony and the pesticide. Each pesticide was applied every 2 weeks to one of the 3 colonies over an 8-week period. The bar graph above shows the insect counts for each of the 3 colonies at each of those 2-week periods, 0, 2, 4, 6, and 8 weeks after initial treatment. Okay, on to the actual problem. Which of the following colonies showed a decrease in size every 2 weeks after initial treatment with the pesticide? So basically, they're asking which colony, so which bar goes down every week. It looks like colony A fits the bill because you see, this is colony A week 0, week 2, week 4, week 6, week 8. That is going down every week. It looks like colony B also fits the bill. It is going down every week, whereas colony C does not, because that from week 0 to week 2 it showed a huge increase. So it's only A and B. So it's 1 and 2. So it's C, 1 and 2 only. Problem 14, they're using the same information from problem 13, that bar graph, and ask, of the following, which is closest to the ratio of total number of insects in all 3 colonies in week 8 to the total number of insects at the time of initial treatment? So they're asking for a ratio where they're asking for week 8 to initial. So what they're asking for in that ratio is really if you take number of insects in week 8 divided by the number of insects week 0, and that's information you can get from the bar graph, is equal to, so let's calculate week 8 first. Looks like colony A had about 20, colony B had about 10, colony C had about 50, divided by, in week 0, colony A had about 80, colony B had about 60, a little more, and colony C had about 60, a little less, so they even out. Add all those up, you'll get 80 divided by 8 plus 6 plus 6, 2200. Then it's the calculator section. You can plug that into your calculator. You'll come up with 0.4 is that ratio. Over here, they don't give you, this says numbers. So you can go ahead and plug these into your calculator too. You'll get 2 divided by 5. 2 divided by 5 will equal that 0.4. So that is what you're looking for. No need to calculate the rest of them. A is the correct answer. All right, problem 15, they give you a right circular cone has a volume of 24 cubic inches. If the height of the cone is 2 inches, what is the radius in inches of the bottom of the cone, the base of the cone? The first thing they're testing you here on is recognizing that that volume equation is given to you on the equation sheet. So refer back to it, get your volume equation. I'm going to reproduce it right from that equation sheet. Volume is equal to 1/3 pi r squared h, and they give you volume in terms of pi. So go ahead and leave it in terms of pi. It'll probably cancel out. They do these kind of problems on the SAT, and the pi's always cancel. So go ahead and plug in what you have. 24 pi is equal to 1/3 pi r squared. H is 2. Divide both sides by 2. That'll leave you with 12 pi. We'll divide by 2 pi, so we'll get rid of the pi's here too. Is equal to 1/3 r squared. Multiply both sides by 3 to give you 36 is equal to r squared. Take the square root of both sides. The square root of 36 is equal to r. That means that r is equal to square root of 36 is 6. Do that on your, it's a calculator section. You can do it on your calculator if you don't remember it. R is equal to 6. So your correct answer is B. Before you do this, always check. They give you radius equal to 6. Are they asking for radius? Sometimes they will ask for diameter just to throw you off, and they even give you that answer here, but they're asking for radius. Your correct answer is B, 6. Problem 16. In 2015, the populations of city X and city Y were equal. From 2010 to 2015, the population of city X increased by 20%. The population of city Y decreased by 10%. If the population of city X was 120,000 in 2010, what was the population of city Y in 2010? Okay, there's a whole lot of data that they throw in that paragraph. So what I would do, it takes a little bit of time, but what I would do is reorganize that data in something more readable. And I would suggest doing a table. So you have city X and you have city Y. And they have 2 years given, 2010 and 2015. And the information they give you is 120,000 population in 2010. So you can go ahead and fill that in. And what they're trying to get to is what was the population of city Y in 2010. So where you're trying to get to is right here. So what's the next box you can fill in? Well, they give you city X is 120,000 in 2010, and they give you that the population of that city X increased by 20% between 2010 and 2015. So basically you can calculate between 2010 and 2015. So how do you get there? You do 120,000, and it's an increase, it'll be a larger number, times 1.2 was the new population. The population growth was 20%, so it's 1 plus 0.2. And that will, this is calculator section, plug it in, you'll get 144,000. So you have 144,000. Now you need to get to the next piece of information they give you, which is, in the very first sentence, they say in 2015, the populations of city X and city Y were equal. So from there, you can fill in 144 right here because these are equal. From there, you can get back to what was the population of city Y in 2010, which is what you're actually asking for. So you start with 144,000, and it says from 2010 to 2015, the population of city Y decreased by 10%. So if you're starting from the end and it's a decrease of 10%, before we were going forwards, you could multiply by that 1.2. We're going backwards now. So you'd have that 144, and this will be 1 minus that 0.1 because it's a decrease in population, which is equal to 144 divided by 0.9. Again, calculator section, plug it in. You will end up with 160,000. Is that right? Right, because the population was declining. So in 2010, it would have been larger. So you have 160,000 city Y in 2010, city Y in 2010. That's what they're asking for. So your answer is C, 160,000. Problem 17, the volume of a sphere is given by the formula here, where r is the radius of the sphere. Which of the following gives the radius of the sphere in terms of the volume of the sphere? And they love to do this on the SAT, where they give you an equation that is something from geometry or physics, and then all they ask is for which of the following gives something in terms of something else. And all that means when they say something in terms of something else is rearrange. So they're looking for which of the following gives the radius of the sphere in terms of volume. So you need to rearrange to find r, basically. So you'll have r is equal to, and that's what all these answers are, r is equal to which of the following. So to rearrange to get in that form, I forget I wrote that. Let's start with the equation they give you. V is equal to 4/3 pi r to the third. Start by multiplying by 3/4. So you have 3v over 4 is equal to pi r cubed. Divide both sides by pi. I could have done that in the same operation, but I didn't. It's equal to r cubed. You can go ahead and do a cube root. So you'll have cube root of 3v divided by 4 pi is equal to r. And that's what you're looking for. So does anything match this result? Looks like D, cube root of 3v over 4 pi. Yep, D is your correct answer. Problem 18. The table above shows the results of a survey in which tablet users were asked how often they would watch video advertisements in order to access streaming content for free. Useful, given this will go on YouTube. Based on the table, which of the following is closest to the probability that a tablet user answered always, given the tablet user did not answer never? Okay, so basically they're asking you to redo the probability after throwing out one of the categories. So they're asking, okay, say they throw out those who did not answer never, how many answered always? So to write that out in equation form, they're asking for the number of people who answered always divided by the number of people who did not answer never. So that will be the number of people who were rare plus often plus always. And you don't actually have number of people, but you can go ahead and think about it in your head, like they asked 100 people and some fractions of people also answered, and you can write it out as, you can think of these as actual numbers of people. So you have number of people that answered always, so you have that 30.9 divided by the number of people who are rarely, so you have 24.3 plus number of people who are often, 13.5, plus the number of people who are always, which is that 30.9. And you can throw all that in your calculator. What you'll end up with is 30.9 divided by 68.7. Go ahead and do that division again on your calculator. You will come up with 0.44978. And they're asking for which one's the closest. You can round that up to, it's pretty close to C. This is equal to 0.45 approximately. The correct answer is C. Problem 19, in the equation above, A is a constant. The graph of the equation in the xy plane is a parabola. Which of the following statements is true about that parabola? This is one of those, it's rare on the SAT, but it's an equation that you have to memorize. The equation of a parabola along with equation of a line and equation of a circle. I'll probably do a video on that later. But the equation of a parabola, if you do not remember, y is equal to n x minus h squared plus k, where the vertex of the parabola is hk, and whether the parabola is upward facing or downward facing is determined by the sign of n, whether it's positive or negative. So first you can see that this is either going to be, they're asking about the point, the vertex here, which you know is, you can fill in as h and k is 3, comma a. So this one's saying -3, comma a. That's incorrect. The vertex is not at -3. And then it's asking, is that vertex its minimum or maximum point? So basically, does the graph look like, that'll happen at 3, right? So it'll be, does the graph look like that, or does the graph look like that? And this would be if n is positive. This would be if n is negative. And in our case, we have a negative, n is equal to -1, which means that that point, the vertex, is the maximum. So D is the correct answer. The maximum occurs at the vertex 3, comma a. Problem 20. The maximum value of a data set containing 25 positive integers is 84. A new data set consisting of 26 positive integers is created by including 96 in the original data set. Which of the following must be 12 greater for the new data set than for the original data set? And the first thing to check is, all we've done is added 96 to the original data set, and 84 was the previous maximum of that data set, and the new maximum is 96. So that'll tell you how much you've increased the maximum by just taking 96 minus 84 is equal to 12. So we're saying it must be 12 greater. That's what they're looking for. And so an increase in the maximum is by definition an increase of the range, where the range is just defined as maximum minus minimum. And its problem says must be. It's possible that increasing this number by 12 also increased the median by 12 because we know nothing about the other numbers. But in this case, it says must be, and the only one that must be increased by 12 is the range. Okay, problem 21. Clayton will mix X milliliters of a 10% by mass saline solution with Y milliliters of a 20% by mass saline solution in order to create an 18% by mass saline solution. The equation above represents the situation. So basically what they're telling you is they're giving you an equation to represent everything they just told you above. Don't jump to a chemistry mode. They start talking about saline solutions and percent mass, and it's easy to jump into a chem mindset and start thinking about all the equations you learn in chem. You don't need it. All you really need is this equation that they're giving you. They're telling you everything they told you is represented by the equation, so don't worry about the chem stuff. If Clayton uses 100 milliliters of the 20% by mass saline solution, which remember is just X, or it's Y, sorry, the 20% by mass saline solution is Y. How many milliliters of the 10% by mass saline solution must he use, which is X. So all they're saying is they want to know X and they're giving you Y. So it's just take this equation, arrange to solve for X, plug in Y, and get your number, your solution for X. So let's go ahead and start by arranging the equation for X before we plug in. So let's first multiply that 0.18 out to make it easier to see. Okay, so let's subtract 0.1x from both sides. So it'll completely get rid of it from the left side. Left with 0.2y is equal to 0.08. We're subtracting that 0.1x plus 0.18y. And then subtract that 0.18y to remove it from the right side. So you'll be left with 0.02y is equal to 0.08x. At this point, you can go ahead and plug in your, so that's an x. Now let's solve completely for x. So let's divide both sides by 0.08. So you'll be left with 0.02 divided by 0.08y. X is equal to this. is equal to, that's 1 over 4 it simplifies to, is 1/4 y. At this point we can go ahead and plug in for y, which we're told is 100. 100 milliliters of the 20% by mass saline solution, and they're looking for the answer in millimeters. So all we have to do is plug in 100 for y. So x will be equal to 1/4 of 100, which is equal to 25, which means that our answer is B. Problem 22. The first year, Eleanor organized a fundraising event. She invited 30 people. For the next 5 years, she invited double the number of people she had invited the previous year. If f of n is the number of people invited to the fundraiser n years after Eleanor began organizing the event, which of the following statements best describes the function f? And the options they give you are that the function is either increasing or decreasing, and that it's either a linear or an exponential function. So let's start with, in the problem, they're saying that for each of the next 5 years, she invited double the number of the people of the previous years. F of n is just how many people in every year. So you know that the number of people she's inviting is increasing, not decreasing. So you can eliminate A, that says decreasing, and you can eliminate C, that says decreasing. Now you're left with only determining whether f is a linear function or an exponential function. You can think about the first year that she's in, the second year that she's inviting more people. The first year was 30 people. The second year is double that, so you have year, and a lot of you might be able to just do this in your head, but we can write it out. So the year 1, 2, 3, she invited 30. Then the second year she doubled that, she invited 60. And then the next year she doubled that, she invited 120. And if you were to draw that out on a chart, you have years 1, 2, and 3. You know that that would look like if 30 is here and 60 is here, 120 has to be here. So if you're drawing that, that is not a linear function. That, in fact, is an exponential function, which means the correct answer is D. The function f is increasing exponential function. Problem 23. They're giving you some values of x and their corresponding values of y are shown in the table above, where a is a constant. If there's a linear relationship between x and y, which of the following equations represents the relationship? And you can look at the form that the answers take and look at that these are in a rearranged y equals mx plus b form of a line. And you know, because it's a line, all you need to do is take 2 points and that will fully define the line. So each of these, even though they have a is just a constant, it's just some number, we can go ahead and take 2 points and find the slope and use the point slope form to find the full equation of that line. So let's use this as the point, the first one as the point x1, comma y1, and this point here as x2, y2. And we know our point slope form of a line is y minus y1. This is an equation that you should have memorized going into the SAT. I'll probably do a video on it later. It's very important, along with the equation of a circle, to have this one memorized. So y minus y1 is equal to slope m x minus x1. And the first thing to calculate out of that is m, the slope, is equal to rise over run, which means y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So we can plug in what we'd already picked as x2, y2, and x1, y1. And it would work if you picked any of those points as you know, the first x and y and the second x and y. So y2 is equal to negative 2a, right? It's right here. Minus y1, which is 0. So it's just negative 2a divided by x2 is equal to 5a. Minus x1 is just equal to a. So you're left with negative 2a over 4a. The a's cancel, and you are left with m is equal to negative 1/2, 2 divided by 4. So you can go ahead and plug that information back in. Plug in your y1, which pretty conveniently is 0. That's a good reason to pick this one as the x1, y1, because that 0 makes this equation pretty easy. The y1 just sort of goes away. Y is equal to negative 1/2 x minus the x1, in that case was a, x minus a. At this point, it's probably valuable to go back, look at what your final solutions have, and there's no half in any of the answers. So that says let's multiply everything by -2 to make this 1/2 go away and put it in front of the y. So let's multiply everything by -2. Let's make this -2y is equal to x minus a. And let's take a look at the forms our equations are taking. Okay, so let's subtract. X and y are both on the same side. So let's do -2y minus x. Let's just subtract x from both sides equal to -a. At this point, we don't have, the only -a is when it's in C with -5. It looks like a is going to be so low, and a is going to be the correct answer. And you can get there by multiplying everything by -1, which will just leave you with 2y plus x is equal to a. And to get it finally in this form, they put x first. So do x plus 2y is equal to a. And that finally gets it to be in the form of the equation that is a. A is the correct answer. Problem 24. The scatter plot above shows the number of registered voters x and the number of people who voted in the last election y for 7 districts in a town. A line of best fit for the data is shown. Which of the following could be the equation of the line of best fit? This is a pretty perfect example of the SAT giving you all sorts of information you don't need. You don't need really any of this first information until this last sentence. They could have just given you which of the following could be the equation of the line of best fit. So that's why I always say, always concentrate on the last sentence in the problem. What are they really asking for? Which of the following can be equation of the line of best fit? It doesn't matter what this graph was for. Okay, that's a little bit of a tangent. Back to the problem at hand. So you look at all of the solutions. None of them have an intercept. The only thing they're interested in is the slope. And right away you can see that as x is increasing, y is also increasing, so the slope must be positive. Right off the bat you can throw out a, it's negative. You can throw out c, it's -2. Neither of those slopes are going to be correct. The only thing you have to determine now is the slope 0.5 or is the slope 2? You can write out your slope equation if you'd like. M is equal to rise over run. So in this case, pick a few points. Looks like the easiest might be just, well, let's use this point right here. 100 and 200 easy numbers to use. In fact, let's go between this point and this point because that's a really easy slope to calculate. They have nice round numbers. So let's say the rise in this case is from 100 to 150, so it's a rise of 50 over a run from 200 to 300, so it's a run of 100, which means that the slope is 50 divided by 100 is 1/2, which is simply equal to 0.5. So your correct answer is B, 0.5x. Okay, problem 25. The system of equations above is graphed in the xy plane. What is the x coordinate of the intersection point xy of the system? Okay, so the tried and true way of doing this would be solve one of these equations for y. So put it in terms of y is equal to something times x plus or minus something. Then plug that y back into the original equation and solve for x. You can definitely do that. There is a trick, however, to make this go quicker, and the SAT does this a lot, so it's a good trick to learn, where you've probably seen where you can add system of equations together, and you might think to try that on this one. If you do, though, you're left with a final result that still has an x, still has a y, and so you can't simply just solve for y once you've done that. You have to get one of these equations, you have to get the y term to cancel so that you can solve for x. So to do it, you have to get one of these two terms here that I've pointed to equal to one another. So you can either do it by dividing the first equation by 3 or multiplying the second equation by 3 to get that 0.5 into 1.5. So that's what we'll do. We'll multiply the second one, each term by 3, such that we can add them together and those y terms cancel. So I'll write out the first equation again, just as it is, no modification. Again, you could have divided this one by 3 rather than multiplying the second one. It gets to the same place in the end. So 1.6 times 3 is 4.8x plus 1.5y is equal to negative 1.3 times 3 will be negative 3.9. Go ahead, add those two together. You'll be left with 7.2x. These terms cancel as we intended, is equal to 0.3 minus 3.9 is negative 3.6. Divide both sides by 7.2 will give you x is equal to negative 3.6 divided by 7.2. Calculator section, you can plug in your calculator, or you can just see that that is equal to negative 1/2, which is equal to negative 0.5, which means that A is your correct answer. Problem 26. Keith modeled the growth over several hundred years of a tree population by estimating the number of trees' pollen grains per square centimeter that were deposited each year within the layers of a lake sediment. That's a long sentence. He estimated there were 310 pollen grains per square centimeter the first year the grains were deposited, with 1% annual increase in the number thereafter. Which of the following function models PT the number of pollen grains per square centimeter t years after the grains were first deposited? Okay, so in your mind, take all that long explanation and think, okay, all I need is an equation that has an initial of 310 and increases 1% each year. You can forget the pollen and everything else. Initial 310, 1% each year. So when there's these percent increase problems that you need to find an equation for, I always like to think, okay, so in terms of years, year 0, when I first start my measurement, I will have that 310, right? No increase at all. Year 1, I'm going to have 310 plus that 1%, and it's the calculator section, so you can do 0.01 times 310 to get you, the increase will be 310 plus 3.1, right, is equal to the number of grains that they find the second year will be 313.1. So whatever equation you pick has to be when you plug in t is equal to 1. When you plug in t is equal to 1, it has to equal 313.1. So that's kind of your sanity check. And you can go ahead and start eliminating them right off the bat when you see that. So A, P is equal to 310 times T. That's obviously incorrect. It doesn't incorporate the 1% at all. And if you plug in T is equal to 1, in this case, you'll just be left with 310. That's incorrect. B, you can plug in the 1. You'll be left with 310 to the 1.01. You can go ahead and plug that right into your calculator. You'll find it does not equal that 313. Since I know this isn't the form of the equation that the exponentials take, but go ahead and plug it into your calculator. You'll find that doesn't work. C is probably the most obviously incorrect because this case, because it has this 0.99 here, and when you take that to an exponential, it will actually be decreasing. So this would be at the number of seeds per year. We're decreasing, not increasing. You can plug it in anyhow and find that you'll get a number less than 310, which is incorrect. We're looking for 313. That only leaves D, where you have 310 times 1.01 to the power of t. All that to the power of t just makes it just 310 times 0.101 for the first year, which does get you that 313.1. D is the correct answer. Problem 27, based on the equation above, what is the value of 3x minus 2? The first thing to realize in this problem is that 3x minus 2 they're looking for is just this 9x minus 6 shows up on both sides, and it's just that 9x minus 6 divided by 3. So let's find a way to rearrange to use that to our favor. Let's start by subtracting this 9x minus 6 from both sides, because it shows up. Basically, that's what we need to isolate. We're trying to isolate this, which means we first need to isolate this 9x minus 6. Let's subtract that from both sides. We have 2/3 9x minus 6 already existing, so subtracting one more from that will leave you with negative 1/3 9x minus 6 minus 4 is equal to 0. Let's move the 4 to the other side. Negative 1/3 9x minus 6 is equal to 4. Okay, let's multiply each side by negative 3 to get that 1/3 out of there. Let's make that 9x minus 6 multiplied by negative 3. Make this negative 12. Now let's go ahead and make this, put this in terms of this 3x minus 2. So divide everything by 3. So 9 divided by 3 will be 3x. 6 divided by 3 is 2. That's what we're looking for, is equal to negative 12 divided by 3 will give you negative 4. So that means that 3x minus 2 is equal to negative 4, and A is your correct answer. Problem 28, the function f of x is defined above. If k is a positive integer, which the following could represent the graph y is equal to f of x in the xy plane. Okay, so start by examining your function, and you see it's already pretty conveniently factored. And when you see a function factored like that, you know that it means you can find your two x-intercepts. Meaning for f of x is equal to 0, it means that 0 is equal to your first factor, x plus 3, which means that subtract 3 from both sides, you'll be left with x is equal to negative 3, will be one intercept. And this will also equal 0, your other factor, is equal to x minus k. Add k to both sides, x is equal to k will be the other factor where you know about k is a positive integer. Okay, so let's go through, and using this first bit of information, one of the intercepts has to be x minus 3. So which graph is that true for? A has an intercept at x minus 3. Right, this is our x-axis. It intercepts at x minus 3. A is still in contention. In B, it intercepts at x is equal to minus 2, so we can throw out B. We know there's no intercept at x minus 2. C also intercepts at x minus 2. We can throw out C. D intercepts at x minus 3. Okay, so left in contention are A and D. And we find that the other intercept in both cases is 2, positive 2, which tells us that K is equal to 2, right? So we can go ahead and now infer that K is equal to 2. We've confirmed that. It jives with our problem, which says that K is a positive integer, and that integer is 2. So now it's just a matter of where is the y-intercept. So when x is equal to 0, what does y equal? Is it positive 6, as in A, or is it negative 6, as in D? So go back to your function. We need to know now f of 0. So f of 0 is equal to 0 plus 3, right? We're just plugging in 0 for x. And then 0 minus k, which we now know to be 2. And even if we didn't know it was 2, we'd still know it's a positive integer, and that's enough to get through this problem. So if you don't identify that, you know, the graphs are telling you, or maybe they had this graph such that one of them intercepts at 3 or 4, all you need to know that it's a positive integer to get through this problem. So now you're left with f of 0 is equal to 3 times 2, negative 2, is equal to negative 6. So that means that our y-intercept is negative 6, which tells you that D is the correct solution. When I said earlier that you could leave this as k, let's just say that we left that as k, we left that as k, then all we know about this is that f of 0 is equal to negative 3k. Knowing that k is some positive integer, that would still tell us that the result must be negative. And so whatever parabola we had a result with a negative y-intercept would be the correct answer. In this case, it's D. Problem 29. The formula above can be used to approximate the height h in inches of an adult male based on the length inches of his femur. What is the meaning of 1.88 in this context? That 1.88 should be easy to identify that this is a slope, this is a line in the y equals mx plus b form, where this 1.88 is the slope m of that line. So let's take a look at our answers and see which signifies that 1.88 is indeed the slope. So A is saying the approximate femur length in inches for a man with a height of 32.01 inches. That's incorrect. That would be saying that that 1.88 is equal to L, which is incorrect. We're multiplying L by this factor of 1.88. It is not inches in and of itself. So B, the approximate increase in a man's femur length in inches for an increase of 32.01 inches in height. No, the 1.88 is the increase in height, right? Because we're multiplying L to get the increase in height. It's not an increase in femur length, it's an increase in height. So B is incorrect. C is saying the approximate increase in a man's femur length in inches for each 1 inch increase in his height. No, once again, this is 1.88 is talking about the increase in height. This equation is solved for height. So anything saying an increase in man's femur length is incorrect. So it must be D, hopefully, or I have to backtrack. The approximate increase in a man's height, yes, because we're solving for height, in inches for each 1 inch increase in his femur length, right? So that's saying that if you had L for every 1 increment increase in L, you're getting a 1.88 increase in height, which is correct. D is the correct answer here. Problem 30, in the quadrilateral ABCD above, AD is parallel to BC and CD is equal to 1/2 AB. What is the measure of angle B? Okay, so they're asking about this angle right here. A few things you can conclude. So because AD is parallel to BC, you go ahead and divide this off as its own. You can think of this now as a triangle and a separate rectangle, and conclude that B and whatever this length here is equal to CD. So this length and this length are equal. CD is equal to 1/2 AB. So if we call it AB 2, then we could call this length here 1, just to think about it. And what we're after here is the angle B. So let's start by figuring out the component that's made of this triangle. And you should, at this point, and what they're really testing you on recognizing is that this is a 30, 60, 90 triangle, because the length on the opposite side of this angle here is 1 and the hypotenuse is double that. That makes these angles 30, 60, and this one we already knew is 90. If you didn't know that off the bat, you could also, as a calculator section, you could do the inverse sine to find these angles, or I guess in this case you'd want to use the inverse cosine to find these two angles, just plugging in 1 and 2. You'd come up with this angle right here as 60. We know that this angle here is 90, so that means that the total angle there is 90 plus 60, which is equal to 150. So your correct answer is A. Problem number 31, on to the free answer section. It's getting pretty dark in here, so I turned a light on. If you're wondering why my video suddenly changed. Okay, actual problem. Lynn has $8 to spend on apples and oranges. The apples cost 65 cents each. The oranges cost 75 cents each. If there's no tax on this purchase and she buys 5 apples, what is the maximum number of whole oranges she can buy? Okay, so start with $8, purchase apples, figure out how much she has after the apple purchase. So she buys 5 apples for 65 cents. Calculator, so plug that in. The amount spent on apples is $3.25. So you can do 8 minus $3.25. Again, plug it into your calculator. You will get 4.75. So that's the amount remaining after buying the apples. So you can take that, divide by 0.75, which is the cost of each orange. 4.75 divided by 0.75, you will be left with 6. She can purchase 6.33, repeating Oranges, go back to the problem. They're asking about how many whole oranges can she buy. So throw off this 0.33 at the end. Your answer is 6. Problem 32, given a triangle, the angle A is equal to 34. What is the value of the other two angles added together? You know that all angles in a triangle have to equal 180. So you know that A plus B plus C is equal to 180. You can subtract A, so 180 minus A is equal to B plus C. That's what you're looking for in your answers. Go ahead and plug in A. You have 180 minus 34 is equal to calculator section. Plug it in, you get 146 is equal to BC, and that's what you're looking for. So go ahead and bubble in 146. Problem 33. The mean of the 5 numbers above is 1600. What is the value of x? You can think back to your definition of mean when given numbers. It's the sum of all the numbers you have divided by the number of numbers. So it would be the sum of all of these numbers divided by the number of numbers, which is 5 in this case, is equal to the mean, which they give you is 1600. At this point, you can probably see in your head what you have to do to solve for x. Multiply by 5, subtract out all the numbers. You can probably plug that right into your calculator. I'll write it out just in case it's not clear. You'd have that 1600, you'd multiply by that 5, and then you'd subtract 700, subtract 1200, subtract 1600, subtract 2000. Plug all that into your calculator. I actually did it earlier because I screwed up this question recording this video earlier, so I actually already know this is 2500. And you can bubble that answer in. Problem 34. The relationship between x and y can be written as y is equal to mx. We're giving you a line where m is a constant slope. If y is equal to 17 when x is equal to a, what is the value of y when x is equal to 2a? So you can tell from the form of this, they're basically giving you a system of equations. They're telling you it's in the form of a line. They're giving you 1 point and then saying on another point solve for y. So actually write it out as a system of equations. Might be easier to see. So sub in that first point, you'll have 17 is equal to m times a for the first equation. For the second equation, you will have still y is equal to m times 2a. And what you need to do, you're looking to solve for y. Solve the first equation for either m or a, and then plug into the second one to reduce your number of variables in the problem. So let's take this first one and solve it for m. So that's pretty simple. Just divide both sides by a. You will have 17a is equal to 17 divided by m. Take that information you've just been given, plug it into the first equation. You will have y is equal to m, say 2m, just to put this 2 in front, 2m, 17 divided by m. The m's will cancel out. You'll be left with y is equal to 2 times 17, which means that y is equal to 34. And that's what they're answering for in the problem, just the value of y. So you can go ahead and bubble in 34. Problem 35. In the equation above, a and b are constants. If the equation has infinite many solutions for x, what is the value of b? So the key here is to understand that when they say infinitely many solutions for x, all it means is get the equation to look the same on both sides such that x doesn't matter, such that you have 4x plus 10 on both sides essentially. So, I mean, I would write out a times x plus b is equal to 4x plus 10, but that's what they already have written out. So you could take a look at this and pretty quickly determine, okay, so a times x, the only thing I have to multiply by x is this a, and I need that to be 4x, so I can pretty quickly determine that a is equal to 4. So the way that would look is you can break it out and just look at these first terms here and say that I know that a times x has to equal 4 times x. Divide both sides by x, you get a is equal to 4. So what does that mean b has to be? Well, go back to your equation and substitute in those numbers. You'll have 4 times x plus b has to equal 4x plus 10. Multiply that 4 through, you'll have 4x plus 4b is equal to 4x plus 10. Subtract the 4x off of both sides, will leave you with 4b is equal to 10. So b is equal to 10 divided by 4. I believe that would be valid to bubble in if you were to bubble that in, or you can see that you can do that divide by 4. You'd be left with that 5 over 2 is the best that rounds to, or you can plug that 5 over 2 in your calculator, 10 over 4 in your calculator, get that in a decimal form. I think that also counts, but best to bubble in 10 over 4, 5 over 2. You can stop right there, and you're done. In the xy plane, a line that has the equation y is equal to c for some constant c intersects a parabola at exactly one point. If the parabola has the equation y is equal to negative x squared plus 5x, what is the value of c? And I'll be straight here. I looked at this equation and I came up with a way right away to do it with calculus, and I thought, boy, the SAT can't want you to use calculus, so I went in their official answer guide, and their way does not use calculus, but it's, to my mind, much slower and very not intuitive. So the way I'm going to show in this video is the calculus way, which I think is pretty quick and better than the official SAT way if you know calculus. If anyone wants to see the other way, you can look in the official SAT guide, or comment, and I will make a separate video that goes over that way in detail. But for now, because I think it's faster, and I always like to show the fastest way, I'm going to show the calculus way to solve this problem. Okay, so because this is saying y is equal to c, that means that it's a straight line with a constant y. So let's draw our, this is just to set up the problem. You wouldn't actually have to draw this on the SAT if you just realized all this, but so let's set up the problem. So you have some constant line for that y is equal to c. So we just call this, something c. It intersects at c. You have a parabola that intersects at exactly one point. And for this to intersect exactly one point, parabola looks like this. That means that that line must be on the vertex of that parabola. So the intersection has to be occurring right here, which means that that intersection is occurring when the derivative of this equation is equal to 0, right? The slope is equal to 0 of a parabola only at one point at its vertex, which must be this intersection point. So the way to think about that is if you take this equation, the derivative of that equation must equal 0. So you can go ahead, take the derivative of this equation. We'll leave you with negative 2x plus 5 is equal to 0. At that point, you can use it to solve for x. You can have negative 2x is equal to negative 5, so that's just subtracting 5 from both sides. Divide 2 by from both sides. X is equal to 5 over 2. Okay, now that you know x, go back, and what they're asking for is what is the value of c. So plug c into this equation and plug your 5 over 2 that you solved for x back into that equation as well. It will leave you with c is equal to negative 5 over 2 squared plus 5 times 5 over 2. At this point, it's pretty easy to solve it. It's just straight solve for c. So you have c is equal to negative 5 over 2 squared. When you have a fraction squared, it's just numerator squared over denominator squared. So you'll have negative 25 over 4 plus 25 over 2. Turn that 25 over 2 into being over 4, so you'd have negative 25 over 4 plus 50 over 4. Negative 25 plus 50 over 4 will leave you with a positive 25 over 4, and that's all you have to do. That's all the further you have to take it. You can bubble in on your equation sheet 25 over 4. Problem 37, they start with information that is good for 2 problems about this falcon, and all they say in this information up here is this falcon reaches speeds of 200 miles per hour. That's all you need to know in terms of the math. And if it were an animal SAT, it would be, you'd have to know whether it was the fastest animal alive. You don't, because it's math. Just cross all that out, or just don't think about it in your mind. 200 miles per hour is the only number you need. All right. Question 37, actual problem. What is the falcon's maximum speed while diving to catch prey in feet per second? Round your answer to the nearest whole number. Remember that for the end, because that's so tricky when they ask you to do that, especially when it's not something like how many, like a previous problem I asked about oranges. Like that makes sense, whole oranges, but like this is a speed. Anyway, just remember that for the end, that you have to round to a whole number. All right, so this is going to be all about canceling units properly. So start by writing out your 200 miles per hour. So I always like to put a 1 there, just to remind yourself. So it's 200 miles every 1 hour, and you're looking to get to feet per second. So let's first convert this miles to feet. So they give us that 1 mile, which will go in the denominator here. So you go to 5280 feet. So that will get you to the feet you need in the numerator. Now get yourself to seconds. You know that 1 hour, go to 60 minutes, and cross out your hours, and you know that 1 minute is equal to 60 seconds. You might already know this, as you can go direct from hours to seconds if you know it, 3600, but you can also write it out like I did there. Plug all that into your calculator. 200 times 5280 divided by 60 divided by 60. You can go off to the side, do all of that in your calculator. You'll come up with 293.33. And here's probably the trickiest part of the whole problem, is you just plugged all that into your calculator, you got this answer, you're ready to bubble it in. Remember to go back. They're asking for the nearest whole number. So that could mean round up or round down. If this was greater than 0.5, they would be looking for you to round up. It's not. It's nearest whole number for only a third would be round down. The answer you need to bubble in is 293. Problem 38, final problem. They're asking you about the same falcon that dives at 200 miles per hour as the previous problem. And in this case, they're saying it's diving at that 200 miles per hour and it is going a distance of half a mile. How many seconds does this dive take? So start with the information they give you of 200 miles per hour. And you can start writing that down. You'll quickly realize you need to flip that. So instead of writing 200 miles over hour, write 1 hour over 200 miles, right? Saying the same thing. Basically be saying you're going 1 hours per 200 miles. You can think of it that way. And the reason to do that is because you're looking to get time in the end. So if you just cancel out your miles, that will get you to where you need to go. So you can use the 1 hour over 200 miles and multiply it by the distance that they give you. So take the 0.5, and that's just straight miles. It's not a fraction. Those miles cancel out, and now you're left with just the time, hours. So now you can go ahead and convert those units. You know that 1 hour is going to have to go in the denominator. Go to 60 minutes. And they're asking for seconds in the end. So convert that one more time. You know that 1 minute is equal to 60 seconds. Go ahead and throw all that in your calculator at this point. 1 divided by 200 times 0.5 times 60 times 60. And you will end up with 9 seconds. So you can go ahead and bubble that in and be done with this test. Congratulations, you made it to the end of the test. Thank you for watching. I've never done this before, the end of my videos, but I guess I'm a YouTuber now, so please subscribe if you like these videos. I'm going to start making some in the near future that are more like tips and tricks and hints for these SATs rather than these big, long SAT explainers. And I hope you'll subscribe to get those quick couple-minute videos delivered straight to you.